and did it even though they weren't supposed to, from peace treaties of the past. Right now, Iran is aggressively building their nuclear technology, although according to their agreements of nuclear non-proliferation, they're not supposed to be doing that either, but yet they still do it. And then when they had meetings with Hitler, they claimed it was peaceful, they were doing it for peace, and that they would have peace in their time. Well, Iran is claiming with their nuclear technology that it is for peace and peaceful uses. And then what helped Hitler, as is now with Iran, is that Europe does not want to deal with the problem. They don't want to deal with the root causes, and they don't want to stand up to Iran at all. Just like they didn't want to really stand up to Hitler, they would rather give them concessions and try to twist their arm into doing something and, live with the status quo and say everything's going to be all right. But in the end, Hitler broke his supposed peace deal. And now the question is, at what point will Iran break theirs? They haven't come to any sort of agreement, but on the other hand, they're not being stopped from developing their nuclear technology, which at some point I think Israel is going to attempt to stop them, which remains to be seen. But if there's an agreement, though, that maybe if somebody comes up with agreement before any type of military action, it wouldn't surprise me if they broke it. I mean, we had the same problem with North Korea with the Clintons. They promised, they gave them concessions. They promised they wouldn't develop their nuclear technology, develop nuclear bomb, and then of course after the Clintons leave office, we were developing a nuclear bomb and we have one. So now the situation in North Korea is that much worse because they have a nuclear device and they've been trying to export the technology. And it'd be a general thorn in the side of the United States. They have a government system there that doesn't work, and they have, in a way, too many people, which is the same problem China has. So, in the end, if they go to war, what's it to them? I mean, of course, the leaders would want to stay alive, but besides that, in their minds, they have people to burn. And so the fact that they have, nuclear weapons just complicates it, because now they can do a lot more damage than what they could have done in the past. And that's the problem we have in Iran. Guaranteed at some point, if they did get a nuclear weapon, they're probably going to use it. At the very least, threaten and try to badger Israel into giving them something. Except usually what they want is just Israel not to exist anymore. There really isn't much that Israel can give, except leave the Holy Land totally. Now, this next part also is another pattern that I've seen pop up. It's this Obama-Akhenaten connection. Akhenaten was a pharaoh of the 18th dynasty, and he ruled about in the 1350 BCs. And at this time, Israel was under the rule of the judges, and they actually were subservient to the king of Moab at the time. Because that in-between stage of the judges before they got a king, they had the judges, but they had a lot of problems with the Philistines. Because they didn't totally conquer the land, eventually, after their initial success, they were in subjugation to other kings and peoples for a period of time until the arrival of Saul as king. And then eventually David, who solidified their borders pretty well. But, he was forever... I've heard people making connections. Some radio hosts talking about Obama as he's the Akhenaten, in this Akhenaten of our time. So I decided to look into it a little bit. First of all, I was surprised to see that Obama does resemble Akhenaten a lot. Not necessarily the hieroglyphics that you normally see if you ever see anything about Akhenaten, because it's a very stylistic, elongated. You don't really see a whole lot of details, but they have found busts since then that have a more realistic look, and some of the statues, the actual statues and not hieroglyphics, had his more realistic look. And yes, he does look very similar, eerily similar. And what Akhenaten did was he changed Egyptians' religious system from their way of worshiping many gods to an attempt for them to worship only the one God, the sun god, Ra. And in Egypt, basically their religious system and their financial system was basically the same. I mean, it was all intertwined. With Obama, it's interesting that with his politics, he is more supports changing the U.S. from a predominantly one God Christian, there being one God system, to a many God system, or many ways to God, or to each his own, which is a reversal there. Akhenaten took money from the old system, the old religious system, to fund his new system. He took from the old system for himself to promote his new system. And Obama's doing the same thing. He's taking money from our capitalist system and the way we've been doing things, and he's taking and printing money and taking monies, which eventually he's going to have to tax people more for, to fund his socialist agenda. Akhenaten changed his name from Amenhotep IV to Akhenaten. So he had two names. Well, actually a pharaoh could have several names, but his original ruling name was Amenhotep IV, and then when he became, in the 5th year of his reign, he changed his name to Akhenaten to reflect his new religion. And Obama has two names. He had a childhood name of Barry Soetoro, and of course now his name is Barack Hussein Obama, which I'm not going to say reflects his religion or not. He's supposedly Christian. I'm not exactly sure how he chose which name, or on that point, he can have whatever name he wants. Also, Akhenaten paid close attention to events in the Middle East, mainly Canaan, Israel, and Syria, and Obama is also placing a lot of importance and attention on the Middle East, Israel. He's having secret talks or talks with Syria. He wants a peace agreement there, and it's interesting to see that pattern has remained consistent there, that they both had dealings in that area of the world and an interest there. Interestingly enough, Akhenaten was not in line to be pharaoh. A death of his older brother allowed him to become pharaoh at the insistence of his mother, Queen T, who was an influential queen of the 18th dynasty. There was some speculation that the Greek tragedy play Oedipus was based on Akhenaten's life. This is not a 100% known fact, except that it is interesting that I believe a Greek writer or philosopher mentioned that it was based off an Egyptian pharaoh. Akhenaten is potentially suspected of maybe having relations with his mother, which might be why she insisted he become pharaoh. It's hard to say, but there's a lot of parallels that I don't have right now, but that they think that the Greeks got the story from Oedipus from Akhenaten and Akhenaten's life, which is pretty interesting. Obama wasn't expected really to become the nominee, let alone president. Oh, he was an up-and-coming person, but everybody thought that Hillary Clinton had the lock. Hillary Clinton thought she had it locked, that there would be a simple nomination process. And through a quirkiness of fate, because they disallowed the Florida and Michigan primary votes, it allowed Obama to stay in the race long enough that he gained enough momentum that he won it all. He took it from her. And